Hello everybody, it's Sarah, and let me just get a few things out of the way first. First of all, happy Pride Month everyone. Technically this isn't my first video during Pride because I did upload another one, but that was pre-filmed, so it didn't count. And this is my official first video during Pride. And that being said, two things. If my makeup looks weird, I don't know if you can even see it because the screen is so small for me, so I don't know if you can tell or not. I've been playing around with makeup because I need special makeup for the parade, obviously. So yeah, I've been playing around with that a lot. That's also why some of my other previous videos had some more extreme makeup, I should say. And then the other thing I wanted to say is that my queer fantasy recommendations, as always, will be coming at some point during this month. However, you're still gonna have to wait a little bit longer for this. And this video, now particularly, will be about my Autobuy Authors, because while I have done videos about my Autobuy Authors in the future, I said in the past, I do think that it's been long enough that it warrants me sitting down again and talking once again about my current Autobuy Authors. And for that, I need to talk to you about what Autobuy Authors are for me. In particular, Autobuy Authors are not necessarily authors where I read everything from them or where I want to read everything from them, because some of the authors that I will talk about write in multiple genres, and if there's genres that I'm not interested in that they write in, that I won't necessarily check them out. It also doesn't necessarily count for me having or wanting to read all of their backlog, because first of all, I'm really bad at looking into an author's backlog. It's a lot of times also that authors have like specific books or series where they have really found their style and what they want to write and how they want to write it, and backlog stuff or early stuff doesn't really fit into that picture that much, so I'm not always fussed about getting to past books. I also don't always count novellas, and I don't necessarily always instantly buy the books. However, with these authors, you can be fairly sure that I will get to, or that I intend to get to, almost everything that they have written or will ever write at some point. And with that being said, let's quickly more or less go through it, because I think I have like 15 authors right here. So I won't talk too much about each one. Just a very quick introduction. First, I have an author who has not even finished a full series yet, I don't think. As I said, I'm pretty bad at keeping up with backlog, and that is Nicholas Ames. He has written the Banned series, which so far consists of 2 novels, which is Kings of the Wild and Bloody Rose. I love both of them. They are very emotional, but also humorous, fun, playing with tropes, D&D music history mashup stories. I don't know how else to call them, and I reread this one recently. I do want to reread Bloody Rose also, but I don't have it currently, and I absolutely adore Nicholas Ames. The books are so good. Next is an author that writes in a genre that I typically do not pick up at all, and that is Angeline Bully, who writes indigenous YA mystery thrillers. She has written, as far as I know, 2 books so far also, Firekeeper's Daughter and Warrior Girl Unearthed. I have loved both of them. I have given the first one 5 stars. I think I gave this one 4.5 stars. Really good. I love the themes. I love the issues that Angeline Bully talks about in her stories, and I will definitely pick up whichever book she decides to publish next, if she does decide to publish another one. Next is 2 authors that I don't yet count about among my favorite authors. I am very particular in who I call my favorite author, because basically in my mind I have to read more than just one project by an author. So either more than one series or more than one standalone by an author before I can call them a favorite author. Before that, they are only authors with a potential to become favorites. And both of these I have read only one series by, so they are authors with a potential to become favorites. The first is Arcady Martin. I have read the Takes a Land duology by her, and she has published a novella last year, although I think that novella might have only been published as an ebook. I haven't gotten to it yet, which I still need to. Like, this is one novella that I definitely need to get to, and the Takes Land duology just blew me away to the point where I was like, okay, I definitely have to read everything by this author that I can get my hands on, because the way this author talks about imperialism, annexation of different communities and different places, about identity also, and, you know, loving that which is kind of, you know, dismissive of you. It's gorgeous. And then everything that she does with language is also absolutely beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. Highly recommend. Can't wait to see more published by her. And similarly, I also can't wait to see more published by Ken Liu. I've only read the Dandelion Dynasty so far by him. I loved it enough to get the midnight, I think they're called midnight editions, for the Dandelion Dynasty from the Broken Binding. Just, again, Ken Liu is a master writer, and the Dandelion Dynasty is unlike anything that I have ever read in fantasy. And you can see the books behind me. I have read a lot of fantasy. I have read a lot of fantasy from a lot of different types of people, from a lot of different marginalizations. So, you know, it's not like I'm talking from the background of someone who's only read white men in fantasy and saying, oh my god, this guy is doing something so different. No, that's not what I'm talking about. This guy is truly doing something different. Like, the Dandelion Dynasty probably won't be for everyone. However, just the way he interweaves philosophy, culture, invention, history, everything into his story, it's just beautiful. And I just want to thank whoever the agent was that bought and sold this book, and whoever the editor was, for letting Ken Liu just ramble on and on about philosophical stuff in his books, because so good, just so good, and I need more like this, preferably by Ken Liu. Then I have an author where I do have a specific series that I don't necessarily intend to read. However, I do want to read most other stuff by her, and that is N.K. Jemisin. I have read 3 of her series. I've read the Dreamblood duology, I've read the Inheritance trilogy, and I've read the Broken Earth trilogy. I'm not interested really in The City We Became and that series, and I'm also not sure if I'll ever pick up her short story collections, because I'm kind of very hit or miss with short story collections a lot of times. However, I just saw that Trudy Canavan blurbed this. Fun. Anyway, N.K. Jemisin also is just a gorgeous, amazing writer. I love her characters, I love her stories, and almost anyone who has read N.K. Jemisin will probably agree with me that she's one of the greats of modern fantasy writing, so it shouldn't be any wonder that she's on this list. Because I just saw her, let's also talk about Trudy Canavan. I have actually, as far as I know, read everything by Trudy Canavan that is out now. I have to admit, recently I haven't necessarily looked into if she published anything since, I'm pointing here because here's where it is, since the Millennium's Rule series. Also, I have hiccups right now, that's why I'm talking kind of weird. However, up to the Millennium's Rule series, I have read everything. I haven't necessarily loved everything, especially the Millennium's Rule. I wasn't as into as her previous series. However, I just like Trudy Canavan. For those of you who have been on my channel for longer, Trudy Canavan, The Magician's Guild, the Black Magician's trilogy was one of the authors that got me into reading high fantasy, and just simply for that and for the nostalgia, I will pretty much pick up anything by Trudy Canavan that I can get my hands on, even in the future. By the way, any of that, for me at least, can obviously change if the authors turn out to be like despicable, horrible people. Which, as far as I know, is not the case for any of the authors here. Since we were just at an author where I've read everything from them, another author is obviously Anne Bishop. If you've been on my, like, especially if you've been a long time viewer, I don't think I need to say anything about this. This was the most important series to me growing up. This was like what a lot of people say Harry Potter was to them. This was the series that I built my youth in. The Black Jewels is that, by the way. I've read everything Anne Bishop except for her latest publication, which came out in March, which is a short story collection, which I'm actually really happy about, because this also includes like all the short stories that have been published in like other anthologies and other short fiction that she has sold even before she has sold any series. And so I will now finally get the lifelong dream of having read everything Anne Bishop once I read that. But yeah, so that is the next person. Also, by the way, I don't know if you can see it or not, but like my Black Jewels copy is so beat up that I put like a protective film on it. I don't know if you can tell it, but the cover and the first page had literally fallen off before I did that. So yeah, this is my baby. So next one is an author where I will specifically say that there's only specific books or a specific type of books that are so far Autobuy, because this author writes in multiple genres or subgenres, and I've only read their modern fairy tale stuff and retelling stuff so far, and that author is Joanne Harris. For her modern fairy tale stuff, she is definitely an Autobuy author. There are some, like, I think mystery novels, and then also stuff that goes into the direction of fabulism and magical realism. Well, not necessarily magical realism because it's not anti-colonialist, but like fabulism and like magical speculative fiction. And I still need to get into her speculative stuff. But her modern fairy tales, she's one of the best storytellers out there. And I very much make the distinction between like an author, a writer, and a storyteller. Sometimes people can be all three. Most people I read are authors. A lot of people are authors and writers, but very few people that I read I would categorize as storytellers, and among those, Joanne Harris is at the very top. Another one where I would categorize her definitely as a writer, maybe even a storyteller, but Madeline Miller. With Madeline Miller, it's kind of an easy thing for her to be an Autobuy author because she writes very little, or she publishes very little. And I have read everything by her that I know of so far that has been like bound physically. So I've read The Song of Achilles, I've read Circe, I've read Galatea, and I will probably like definitely read whatever she brings out next, which I think is in the realm of a Persephone story, retelling, whatever. And yeah, I don't think I need to say anything particularly more than that, because everyone who has read Madeline Miller knows that she is a stellar writer, and her writing is just so gorgeous and beautiful. And just to get all my favorite writers out of the way, next is Nivo. I have pretty much like, I've not necessarily read all of Nivo's short fiction, but I have pretty much read everything that she published as like single volumes. So her novellas, her Singing Hill series, as well as Siren Queen and The Chosen and the Beautiful. Nivo's writing, again, is just beautiful, gorgeous. I do prefer her long form stuff to her short form stuff. And I already have an arc for her new book coming out this year, which is called, I think, City of Glass. And I believe it might be high fantasy. It might be her first longer stuff that's high fantasy. And I'm very excited. And can't wait to get to it. And that's how you know you have an Autobuy author, because Nivo is one of the authors where over the last 2 years, I think, I have gotten her arcs pretty consistently, the e-arcs, and I still get every single book physically. So next is a kind of two-tier Autobuy author thing, and that is M.A. Carrick. M.A. Carrick is a two-tier Autobuy author thing because M.A. Carrick is actually an author duo, and it consists of Mary Brennan and Alec Helms. I have not yet read anything by Alec Helms, so I can't put them on this list. However, for M.A. Carrick as a duo, automatic Autobuy. If you know anything about my channel, I hope that you know that this series is my favorite series of all time. It's the series that after 15 years, I think, has dethroned this one. Like, without a doubt. So, big deal. And yeah, so as M.A. Carrick, absolute Autobuy. And then also Mary Brennan is an Autobuy, although I have not read her backlog stuff that she has written before the Lady Trent series. And there has been one book published last year, I believe, The Tales of Angatyr, which is a historical fantasy, I believe, that I also haven't gotten to yet. That I still need to rectify. However, technically, Mary Brennan is an Autobuy author. Another Autobuy author is Jen Lyons. I have already read her new book because I also had an arc of that. There will be a review coming, but otherwise I've read, of course, A Chorus of Dragons, which also made my favorite fantasy series of all time list. I adore Jen Lyons' character work over everything else, and I am someone, I have to be honest, while I do quite often on a like intellectual level or like a kind of distance level appreciate characters and love analyzing characters, there are at this point very few authors where I fully become engaged and invested in the characters to a point where I'm just like emotionally invested, not just intellectually, mentally, but emotionally invested. And Jen Lyons is one of the few people that manages to do that for me without fail. An author that I would have never thought to see on this list was R.F. Kuang. At least when I started with R.F. Kuang, because I didn't like the first two books that I read by R.F. Kuang. How often can I say it? I still need to read Yellowface, however, I do own it. And aside from that, however, I just by now have come to really appreciate R.F. Kuang. She's not the most subtle author in what like she reads, and I think like there's this trend right now that I've been seeing on Twitter at least to start critiquing R.F. Kuang, because like people feel like she's being praised too much and hyped too much, and so now she needs to be everything, and if she's not everything then she like needs to be torn down. I don't know, there's just something going on right now. I do not think that she's without fail. I do not think that her books are for everyone, and I do think there are very legitimate criticisms of the books. However, I do think that what the books set out to do, they do really, really well. Like, R.F. Kuang isn't without criticism. I'd be the first one to say that. Like, I pretty much tore apart the Poppy War. I love The Burning God, didn't like The Dragon Republic, so, you know. Anyway, but yeah, I'm really excited for her new book because it sounds really fun and it sounds really interesting. And yes, by the way, the book, the edition that I'm holding up here right now is a French special edition that I just had to get because look at it. Next, I have an author where I will definitely read everything she publishes in the future, although I'm not sure how common that will still be because she took a big break in between before publishing again last year, and I still intend to get to some of her books that she has written in the past, and the author I'm talking about is Jacqueline Carey. I have recently finished Nama's Blessings, so the third in the Cushiel's Legacy trilogies. And yeah, I just love her writing. I love her character work. I love the way she handles trauma and sexuality and interpersonal relationships. And she's just... I love her as an author, and her books are so fast and easy to read and so engaging. And she's also another author where I get invested in the characters so easily. An author where I have only read one book by them so far, but that has already become an Autobuy author because I need to reread this book, but this is one of my favorite standalones of all time, is ML Wang. I do intend to possibly read her book that she published last year, and that's gonna be republished by a traditional publisher this year, this month possibly. However, yeah, ML Wang, I hope that her new book does even just a fraction of what this book did to me. I can't even talk about it. Just go read The Sword of Kaigen. And then lastly, another author that I was kind of hesitant on after the first book, but that has definitely established themselves as an Autobuy author, is Ava Reid. I have A Study in Drowning here, the Illumicrate edition. Yeah, Ava Reid is another author who has just beautiful writing, and I love what Ava Reid does with themes. Just like the way she incorporates themes into her stories. Gorgeous, beautiful, everything amazing. Just, ow. I just almost poked out my eye with the corner of this book. But yeah, I'm very, very excited that this book also, which is A Study in Drowning, I think I said that already, is gonna get a sequel, I think. And yeah, with all of that said, those are that is, I should say, my very long list of Autobuy authors. Tell me in the comments down below, are any of these authors also on your list? If you enjoyed this video, maybe think about giving me a thumbs up and also maybe subscribing. Also, I feel like because the light has gone from outside, the lighting was kind of weird in this video. Anyway, whatever. Today is the day with the lighting. All the links to my social media as well as to my book club of Queens, Witches and Valkyries, where I read one adult fantasy book, I should say, written by a woman or genderqueer person per month, will be left linked down below. Go and check those out. If you're interested, this month we are reading Voyage of the Dan by Frances White. Yes, Frances White. And with all of that said, I hope I'll see you soon. Bye!